you want to attract A players today, you need to demonstrate how you can heal their career wounds. And most people have them. There's a lot of people that are in jobs right now that are working, they're okay, they're doing well in their jobs, but they're not really in a place where like they're really thriving. And so if you're able to kind of tap them on the shoulder, have a conversation with them, learn what these career wounds are, and then be able to demonstrate or connect the dots for them that your opportunity actually helps them heal those career wounds, that person's getting to a place where in which they're going to be able to grow their career, and you're getting a player that's going to just crush it in your company.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of Better Business, Better Life. Today I am joined by the wonderful Rick Girard, who is a startup founder of an IT business. He's a long-time person who's passionate about recruiting the right people in your business. He's an author of a fabulous book and many, many more things. We're going to find out a lot about Rick over the next sort of half an hour or so. So welcome to the show, Rick.
Hey, thank you for having me, Deborah.
Oh, absolute pleasure. Hey, look, we've just been having a bit of a chat before we came onto the podcast. You've got quite an interesting background. So you've always been really passionate about people and getting people in the right space. Tell us a little bit about your history and how you came to be where you are today.
Yeah, most definitely. So, I had inspired to be a professional photographer and kind of went that realm in school, and then actually quickly discovered that, the poor starving artist lifestyle just wasn't for me. So I was fortunate enough to kind of get recruited to get into a job that I knew really nothing about, but I knew that my boss did really well financially. And the opportunity also arose that I could actually move up to the mountains and be able to snowboard, which was something I was passionate about at the time. So I really moved up to snowboard, and I ended up falling into a career. That's kind of the way I categorize it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So that career was recruitment, and tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, I was headhunting for Silicon Valley startups, which, at the time, and we're going back, quite a few years. I mean, I had hair and everything back then. But in the time, it was kind of during the whole .com bubble when I started, which was, it was kind of one of those things where you really didn't have to be good at what you did. You just had to be able to like get people interested in companies, and because it was just like this crazy feeding frenzy.
Yep.
So I did quite well. It was kind of a transactional journey. I did really well from a financial perspective. I was able to help build a really strong business, and and then around kind of that 9/11 time frame when that happened, I decided to kind of pack up and sell all my stuff and move to Hawaii. Oh. But I was like the guy doing recruiting in the Silicon Valley from Hawaii. So I just kind of, what was nice is that it gave me the opportunity to be able to really do what I love to do, like from anywhere.
So we switched from snowboarding to surfing, right?
Yeah, well, I grew up surfing and then got into snowboarding, and then, decided to go back to surfing because I was living in the mountains for a while, and I was missing the ocean. And then, then I don't know why I just keep flip-flopping.
That's all good. So we're in Hawaii. We're still recruiting for Silicon Valley. Obviously, the bubble has burst a wee bit now. So what happens next?
Yeah, so the bubble bursts. I actually did some recruiting over in Japan, which was super fun. That was really an interesting experience. And then when the market picked up again, I got back into the Silicon Valley and helped build a whole bunch of startups. I had a small staff of people, and we for quite a few years we were like just crushing it. We were having a lot of fun. It was kind of a lifestyle company for me because I was doing a lot more surfing than I was working. But then I kind of came to a point where I had the realization that I kind of got to get back to fulfilling my purpose, and that being really helping executives and entrepreneurs and startup founders do a much better job of hiring so that their chances of success are greater than what they are, because right now you have such a minuscule chance of succeeding as a company. Yeah.
And I know that you're a bit of an EOS fanboy, and obviously Gino Wickman has written the foreword for your new book, which is great. Yep. So we always talk about the right people in the right seats, and we know how important people can make or break a company, really, can't they?
Yeah. Yeah. And like years ago, somebody said to me, well, okay, how do I know if I'm getting the right person in the right seat? And that was the challenge that I kind of took on, is that, there is, like EOS, there's a methodology that you plug into that essentially helps you operate your business very, like, in a fashion that sets you up for success, right?
Yeah.
Enables you to get what you want out of your business. But there wasn't ever anything like that when it came to hiring. And especially, what I discovered was the biggest problem in hiring is not getting people in the funnel, because there's a million tools out there to do that. The biggest problem in hiring is once you get somebody in the funnel and you take them through the interview process, that's where the wheels come off the bus. Because guess what? We don't know how to interview.
No.
We have conversations with people most of the time that have nothing to do with, they might have a little bit to do with the work and some of the other things, but we're not gathering enough evidence to support whether or not somebody should be hired. It's usually like, hey, do I like this person? Do I feel like this person is somebody that I could spend, 8 hours a day with?
Yep.
And that's the criteria by which people are evaluated.
Yep. And also, as we know, in the interview process, people can be very, very different in the interview process to how they actually behave when they're in their work environment. So you can have a beautiful coffee with someone and go, I love this person. And they're just like me, so that must be good, right? Not. And then you employ them, and then sort of, down the track, you realize you've made a hiring mistake. So what are the common mistakes that people make in terms of that interview process?
So I think first and foremost is that people don't evaluate people based on evidence. They base their evaluation on an interview based on biased personal motives or assumptions, right? And that's pretty much what people run off of. So, EOS companies have core values, right? We should be evaluating people for core values. And so I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of companies make, is they don't really drill into the core values of the company and see if and gather evidence to support whether or not somebody aligns with those values.
And I've said it with my clients, is that, you can come up with some core values, but it's very difficult to actually test that, because if you say to somebody, we've got a core value of be your word, for example, if you ask somebody just outright, are you your word, it'd be really unlikely that anybody would ever say no to that.
Well, yeah. So, and if you ask it like that, you're right. Right? Because everybody's going to say, oh, yes, that's me, of course, because people lie in the interview, right? And by the way, we lie in the interview too, by saying our values are this, when, the truth is that we don't live those values a lot of times. So there needs to be a language around the values that gives somebody a North Star by which they can make decisions, right? So, be your word, what does that mean exactly? We usually have a couple lines under that as to what exactly that means and how somebody lives that within the organization. Yeah. So the way in which you back into that is you create what are called behavioral interview questions, which in my mind are like, I don't think there's anything better in gathering details to understand whether or not somebody operates the same way that you operate. Right. And you can't use the phrase in it, but you have to kind of back into, walk me through a time when whatever that might be. Right. And you create these questions so that essentially you're getting an example of a real life situation in which they had a situation, how they handled it, how they felt about it, what they did, what the results were. That gives you a lot of data that you can pull from. That gives you an accurate depiction of who that person is. Because it's really easy to just say, oh, yeah, that's me. But it's really hard to kind of make up things and lie, and kind of mold your story toward, what you think it might be.
Yeah. Okay. So that's one of the mistakes. What else do you see happen in the? Because you've got two businesses at the moment. You've got Stride Search and you've got Intertru.ai, which is your startup. So in the Stride Search, that's obviously recruitment. What are the other sort of things that you see happening that really are sort of pitfalls of recruiting?
Interviews not tied to values. Yep. Job descriptions, terrible. People copy job descriptions from large companies. 5 years of this, 4 years of that. Yeah. Start thinking of your job description more as a marketing document if somebody gave you a job description as a marketing material that by which you're going to market your company, you'd fire them. Like, job descriptions are just terrible.
Yep.
And then and I think the third thing is that not having a structured process by which you're bringing somebody through the interview process, right? So like, just, hey, come in, we'll talk to you, we'll grab some coffee. Like, those things are very casually done, but the impression that you're giving somebody is that we're a casual company.
Yep.
We're not really a serious company, because I don't take my interview process seriously, so you shouldn't either. And, if you're trying to attract A players, especially if you're a smaller company, that's all you should be looking for, are A players. They don't get impressed by, you buying them a latte, or,
Yep.
Just having a conversation that's undirected and has no purpose behind it. So each stage in your interview process needs to have a purpose tied to it, and it needs to be communicated.
Okay. So obviously, this your Intertru.ai is the new startup business, and that is just recently launched. Is that right?
Yeah, we launched 2 weeks ago. We're in our pilot program, or a beta, I guess.
Oh,
We've got
awesome.
5 customers using it. And of course, our first 5 trials on it crashed, but we're loving it, because we're figuring out, all the bugs. But we got it. It seems to be working right now. So.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I mean, that's always the challenge, isn't it? You build your MVP, it goes out there, it's a beta version. We've got the same thing with EOS 1 at the moment. It's, when it was launched in a beta version, it was really, really buggy. And yet, until you start testing, you can't learn from that. So it feels terrible, but at the same time, huge learnings.
Is that what's designed to kind of take the place of traction tools, or
Yeah. So it's EOS's version of that software to run EOS purely in your business. So, hey, look, they've spent a lot of money. They obviously had a lot of development time on it, but you don't actually get to find out what really works and what doesn't until you put it in the hands of your actual customers.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So you got 5 customers using.
Finest.
So what was that? Sorry.
Modern day QA at its finest.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've just launched. You've got 5 kind of customers using the beta version. Tell us a little bit about the software. Like, what's it designed to do, and who's it for?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, we designed it for companies that are anywhere from like 2 people up to like 100. And the idea is that we're giving you a plug and play interview process that's built around your core values.
Right.
And essentially we've staged it out over probably the past 10, 15 years. One of the things that I've done in my search practice is that I've come in and approach searches from the perspective of, okay, look, I'll take this search, but in order for us to do that, you have to run my interview process. Because I know that if you run it your way, you're probably not going to get as much great data out there to make the right decision. But I've kind of fine-tuned, and I developed this thing called a hiring operating system that essentially we just plug that into Intertru, and we allow you to kind of run that structure through your interview process. Okay. And the idea is to just to do 2 things. Number 1, give everybody a roadmap by, here's your questions, they're already pre-assigned. Here's sub-questions so you can gather more detail. And then what we do is we record, transcribe, and we have some technology that in the background will analyze the content to let you know whether or not somebody's telling the truth, whether or not they're, is the data that you're collecting accurate?
Yep. And does it also pick up on things like tonalities and the trends of what the person is actually sort of saying and how it comes across, or?
Not yet, but that's where it's headed.
That's where it's headed. Perfect.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. So that's a big step away from your traditional kind of search background, which is very much service-based, and now you're going to a software as a service. What made you decide to do that?
I don't scale.
Yeah. Yep.
I work searches, and I have a lot of fun with it, but I can only benefit the companies that I work with, and I can't benefit at a larger scale. So I feel like, being able to put this in the hands of smaller organizations can greatly improve their ability to be successful.
Yeah.
Because when you have the right people in the right seat, then magic happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you don't, it's, sometimes a plane crash getting ready to hit a train, a train wreck, right? So
Sure. So your core focus, how would you describe that? Because that's obviously what's driving you to reach more people and do more good work. What is your core focus for?
I mean, the core focus is just I don't know. I'm partial to entrepreneurs because I am one, right? So
Yeah.
I want to help shift the balance of power away from the transactional, kind of model of what happens in hiring. Companies lose people all the time because some big company came in with an offer much higher. And what I've realized is that most people don't make a jump really for the money, but we kind of play that transactional game. And so when we get to the end, if we can't show that we have value that we offer that person above and beyond what the other people do, they're just going to go for the highest offer.
Yeah.
And so, it's just me being able to kind of help out my fellow entrepreneurs and get them to a point where we win as opposed to, the big boys.
Absolutely. And I suppose it's a win-win for not only the entrepreneurs who are employing, but also for the people who are coming on board, because they're going to have happy people. They're going to be happy in their role. They're going to love what they're doing, etc. So, interesting. Okay, you've also written a book, and I have to say when I saw this, it's like healing career wounds. So your startup secret weapon to attract, hire, and retain ridiculously successful people. But tell me a little bit. So the title, healing career wounds. It's interesting. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, I just had this vision of walking through the airport and seeing the book and going, oh, that's an interesting title. I would pick it up and read it, right?
Yeah.
And see what it's about. It's really the punchline, though. If you want to attract A players today, then you need to demonstrate how you can heal their career wounds. And most people have them. There's a lot of people that are in jobs right now that are working. They're okay. They're doing well in their jobs, but they're not really in a place where they're really thriving.
Yep.
And so if you're able to kind of tap them on the shoulder, have a conversation with them, learn what these career wounds are, and then be able to demonstrate or connect the dots for them that your opportunity actually helps them heal those career wounds, that's when you've got a situation where it's a super win-win, because that person's getting to a place in which they're going to be able to grow their career, and you're getting a player that's going to just crush it in your company.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the idea. I mean, it's a guide for startups that you can just plug into your business. That's our hiring operating system, right?
Yeah.
You can self-implement.
Excellent. Oh, look, I mean, with the EOS, I'm all for people. Anybody who's just doing EOS, whether they self-implement or work with us, I'm all for it. Yeah, anything to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so when did you write the book?
I wrote it. I started writing it in 2019, and then I finished it during COVID because I could. Yeah. And then we released it last year.
Oh, that's awesome. I look forward to getting hold of a copy, and we'll put a link into the bio in terms of where people can get hold of that. Now, you've said great. A couple of times that you're an entrepreneur, and I can see that. And obviously, you've been running businesses your entire life. You've probably had some ups and downs in those businesses, because when we think about business, particularly startups going into the startup space, they kind of imagine it's all just going to go that beautiful hockey stick curve, and everything's just going to go so smoothly, and it's just going to, and it doesn't work like that, does it?
No.
No,
I mean, I actually have a podcast too, and it was kind of nice because I actually did see the hockey stick once we started getting it going.
Yep.
That was kind of cool to see, but then it kind of started doing this, right?
Yeah.
But then, I probably had a lot more downs than ups for sure.
Okay.
I just happen to be kind of stubborn. I just keep going. I worked for somebody for a very long time, and when I moved to Hawaii, that was when I started up my recruiting firm. And it was more of a lifestyle business than really a business until I moved back to California, and then kind of started these other projects that are more passion projects, but I've been able to turn them into a business, which has been really nice. But they're all tough. It just requires that you can constantly work on them and get them better. And like I said, I fail way more often than I succeed.
I mean, that's interesting. I think probably you and I've got a similar kind of journey. I've had a few failures in my life as well, although I actually see them as learning experiences because I think I learn a lot more from the failures I do from the successes. But I mean, how do you keep yourself going? Because people say to me, gosh, you've been through so much. How do you keep yourself going? And for me, it's about, I know why I exist, right, on this planet. So I just keep tapping back into that. I've got to keep doing that. And if that means I have to keep falling down and getting back up again, I will keep doing it. But yeah, how do you keep yourself going?
Honestly, like I have times where like I just want to pull my pillow over my face and not get back up. I don't know. I think I have this kind of like thing. I don't know if it's like your greatest strength is always your greatest weakness but once I start something, I have to finish it. And the problem is that like a lot of things you start, you can't finish, right? So, I don't know. I just kind of wake up. I don't drink coffee, but I do jiu-jitsu like usually every morning, and that kind of wakes me up and gets me going because sometimes I have a good day, sometimes I have a bad day, but it kind of like, okay, I already accomplished this, so now it puts me in a position where I can go hammer out a bunch of stuff that I have to do.
And switching from a service business to a software as a service business, which is very, very different, what have been the biggest challenges for you?
Oh gosh, getting out of the mindset of, service-based business is all about, business development and continually like who's in my funnel. I got to wrap this thing up. I got to go find new business. For me, it's always been a bit of a roller coaster ride, right? So you never have a consistent amount of business. Sometimes you have too much and you have to turn it away, and then all of a sudden you finish things up faster than you thought you were going to, and then next thing you know, you have nothing.
Yep.
So that's been a big challenge, is just to change that mindset of me always being on the phone and recruiting people and kind of running that business and shifting more toward developing relationships. And we're developing a SaaS platform, so we're really trying to make this sticky for customers. So like I'm doing a lot of customer gathering information and stuff like that. I've been around startups, so I kind of understand how they operate and how successful companies operate, thankfully.
Nice.
So that's been, I've seen so many do a lot of things that I put in my memory banks, and I'm like, okay, I will not do that.
Excellent. Learn from their mistakes, which is great. So you say we. Is this a project you're doing with another co-founder, or?
I have a co-founder. Yeah, I have a co-founder. His name is Awesome. Like, so you can't even have a better name for a co-founder.
I love it. Seriously, that's his name.
Yeah, his name's Awesome.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. And so that would be quite interesting for you, wouldn't it? Going from running your own business on your own to having a co-founder. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, we're going actually full venture on this. Like, so I'm raising capital. I'm going that whole route.
Right.
Again, I've been around it for most of my career, so it's not completely foreign to me. It's just, and it's actually been really nice to not have everything on my shoulders, to be able to kind of balance things off my co-founder's shoulders. But it took me a long time, since I do recruiting, I vetted, like we had lots of conversations before we started working together.
Yeah. And
it was about kind of understanding what he wanted and understanding what was important to him, and seeing if we were in alignment, because if we weren't in alignment, there was no reason to kind of continue me selling the job. So I talked to a lot of people. I talked to a lot of people that I know in the industry, and I had a few that bit, but didn't really like it. And, Awesome and I just kind of like, we resonated with each other. So that tended to work.
Yeah.
But it's been great so far.
Okay. I must admit, I work with more established businesses these days. Obviously, with the EOS, it's really for that sort of more established business. But I spent 7 years working with the Ice House over here, which is one of the top sort of incubators in the world, and did a lot of work with startups and market validation, taking things to market, raising funds and things. And, everybody always wanted a co-founder. And my thing was that absolutely, it's great to do it with somebody, but do make sure you find the right person. Because to me, it's a little bit like getting married, right? If you don't have the right sort of shared values, if you don't have the same vision in mind, if you're not on the same page with all of that, it's going to be a pretty miserable relationship.
Yeah, it is. And by the way, I'm usually the one brought in to fix those situations quite often.
Are you? Yeah.
Usually when the companies like get around getting their Series A and the team is like, hey, look, we've got so and so here completely not working. We need to replace that person. Then that's always been the role that I've come in and helped fill. So I'm very familiar with it. I've seen way too many, nightmare stories.
Yeah, no, same here. Okay, cool. So you've also got a podcast, as you said. So, and I was just reading about that, and it's sort of so we're not running a school for gifted mutants, Professor X. I host the Higher Power Radio Show podcast. Please tell me more about that, because that is, again, has just completely piqued my interest.
Oh my God, that was one of my employees used to call me Professor X for some reason, probably because of the bald head,
Sure.
So it was just kind of a joke that made it into the bio and people like it, so we left it.
Perfect. Yeah. So tell me about the podcast. What is it you do on the podcast?
Yeah. So the podcast is called Higher Power Radio. It's not a religious show, by the way. It's about hiring.
Higher, as HIRE.
HIRE. Yeah. Higher Power Radio. And the premise behind the show is that we bring on entrepreneurs and VCs and professionals who are really who have figured out how to hire, in a way that works for them. Mm-hmm. And then we identify a specific problem, and then we provide the solutions that hopefully other entrepreneurs can take and plug into their businesses. Yep. So that's the aim of the show. Do we get it every episode? We're getting pretty close, but sometimes we don't.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so there's such a lot of information here that we just sort of talked about. I would really love to kind of condense that all down into sort of 3 things that the listeners can take away from this and go, hey, I can do this in my business right now to start making a difference. What would those 3 things be, do you think, for you, Rick?
Well, I think first and foremost, values are super important. The companies that I know that are the most successful, and by the way, people don't ever want to leave. It's really easy to retain people was when people align with the values of the company. Mm-hmm. And so, look at your values, ask yourself if they're real. And if they're real, then make sure you've got some context to it, some measurable, kind of wording to it that people can align to, right? Mm-hmm. And then take that data and build your interview questions around that, because that's what's going to determine whether or not somebody's successful. I don't know if you know this, but Amazon has been doing this since the early days, where 70% of the hiring decision is based on whether or not somebody aligns with the values of the company. Mm. They know that they can teach skills, but if somebody doesn't align with their core values, they're not going to work out. Mm. So arguably the best success story, right? And I don't know why more people don't copy that. But they've certainly crushed it year over year for a very, very long time. Yeah.
I do wonder if it's that. I mean, I've spent some time for my sins in kind of corporate world, and often the values piece was really a tick in the box. Yep, tick, we've got some values. They're on that wall. Yeehaw, off we go. And they weren't real, and they weren't authentic, and they try to shove them into an acronym of the name of the company or whatever they might do. And so I think that if you've had that introduction to it and then you're going into your own business, you don't see the true value of getting these things right. Whereas if you've worked in a company where they really genuinely live, breathe, hire, fire by their core values, you can see how important they genuinely are.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right. I've walked into so many companies where they have their values on their all. I'm like, I don't even know, what do these mean? I don't see any teamwork that's going on here. As I walk around, I see people hiding, you just have to live those. I think even if you have an environment that's like what some people consider a harsh environment, like you have a bunch of backstabbing people who, you eat what you kill and, lock your desk at all costs. I mean, I would love to see those values in some company.
Because it's true. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. But not only that, there are people that are like, yes, I want this.
Yep.
Yeah. I think when companies get into trouble is because they say that there's something that they're not, and then it becomes a, harsh work environment.
Yeah. And I think it's also true. It's like, you're right. There are different people have different values. And so they may not fit in with your organization, but they could be really great for another organization. I think sometimes people struggle to let people go. But it's actually the best thing for both parties because they'll go and find somewhere where they actually do fit in with their values and are in a better space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you don't want to waste time on somebody that's not even going to accept your offer, right?
Yeah.
Like it's never made sense to me, the recruiting model where, you're going to get 100 resumes, interview 20 people, make 3 to 5 offers, and hopefully somebody accepts.
Yeah.
Because it's, you're usually not getting your top 10 or your bottom 10%, right? Like you're screening out them right off the top.
Right.
And then, so what are you getting? You're getting the middle 80%, and hopefully, somebody resonates with you and accepts the offer. And then if they work out, it's purely based on luck. Mm. If they don't, I mean, actually, I read a statistic not too long ago where you have like a 51% chance of making a wrong hire just with a normal interview process. So you're better off actually just walking into the room, flipping a coin.
You'll do.
Yeah. Heads are hired, tails are not.
Yep. Yeah, I love it. Okay, so we've got make sure you've got your values, make sure they're real, use that data to build your interview questions around it. And then finally?
Train and coach your people. Like get your people understanding understanding the language of your values and using it within the organization by how the people in your company make decisions. Empowering them to make decisions based on, hey, are we, I forgot the value that you said earlier, but, are we being real? Or
Yeah.
Usually when it's when you can use it as a basis by which you make decisions, then people make better decisions, and you don't have as many problems that happen. And then also, as people go into an interview, they should understand that the purpose of this interview is to gather this data. They should be trained on how to run an interview, talk to people, not what not to say, but really how to listen, how to ask questions and listen and gather data.
Love it. Brilliant. Okay, so we've got some really great tips there. We've also got some things that people can do that will actually help them. So you've got your book there that people should definitely have a look at, The Healing Career Wounds, which I'll put the link in the thing. What about your new software? I mean, is that sort of, I know it's in beta stage, but is it ready for people to start jumping on board or?
Yeah, actually, we're building our customer list right now. So it's Intertru.ai. It's INTERTRU.ai. We're building a list. I think I've got about 18 companies right now. So we just wanted a beta with 5.
Yep.
And then, but we're going to be adding more companies as we go along. So
excellent. And then obviously we've got the podcast as well. So the Hire Power Radio is an HIRE Power Radio.
Yep.
And so, but if people want to get in contact with Professor X himself, how can they do that?
I'm on LinkedIn. You could also probably drop me an email at rick@stridesearch.com. I'm pretty open. I get a lot of email though, so it might take me a few days to get back to you.
Sure.
But I'm always happy to to help when I can.
No, that's beautiful. Hey, look, thank you so much for your time this morning. I really appreciate it. Some really good tips and pointers in there, which of course all fit in perfectly with our whole EOS right people, right seat stuff. So that's always good.
Exactly.
Good luck with the new software. I hope it goes swimmingly for you. I look forward to reading your book and hopefully sharing some stuff from that as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Deborah. It was really nice to meet you.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you.